Welcome to this next episode of YouTube, where we actually start out with some howling. So I'll let you listen to Denali respond to the Arctics when we came in for wolf care. Temperatures here have been a little bit unusual for a September day. We had 86 degrees today, and as you can see, the wolves have their full winter coat, and this was filmed at about 8 in the morning, and it's definitely a warm day for wolves. So we're seeing a fair amount of playing in the water, playing in the pond, and still sniffing quite a bit. Again, this time of the year that maybe there's a lot of wildlife moving around, a lot of bird activity, and you'll see some ravens here coming up in a bit that have been actively following up on the wolves' carcasses. What they don't consume, the ravens will come down and try to eat. Aiden continues to be kind of glued to wolf care staff, in a pretty good mood and having a really good winter coat coming in. But this is Aiden here, and of course when we're filming, Aiden likes to get right in there. So there's sometimes when the camera's a little bit wobbly, it's because Aiden's either pawing us or jumping on us trying to get some attention. But so I decided to keep filming from Aiden's perspective. And as Denali, again, sniffs the wind and tries to pick up a scent there, you'll oftentimes see them run to the back of the enclosure and interact with something that we're not really sure what they're seeing or what they're smelling, but certainly something stimulates them. They do have a different gait when it's a wolf, and we've had an opportunity to see that, meaning that we saw the wolves run up towards the top of the enclosure, and about 15 minutes later, we get a report there was a wolf that crossed the road, so we kind of know what they act like. These are our ravens that visit the enclosure, and you have to be careful once in a while. They drop stuff on the top of your head, and we do see raven activity increase as winter approaches. So here's a raven feeding on, I'm not sure what, picks something up from the pen and is using the tree for a dinner table. The other things that we continue to do, obviously keeping the exhibit open. The exhibit is still open 7 days a week, so we're really working hard at keeping the exhibit clean, windows clean. That might mean Aiden and Denali get drawn off into holding, and you can see Aiden going up to holding without any troubles there, and actually he's been pawing to get in, to get to the closer to the lab so he can see Oscar. But after we're done washing the windows, the wolves come back out, and they'll scent mark on any place where there's leftover residual soap, and we just use Dawn dish soap on the windows, and then they'll try to scent roll. It's a little bit of a problem when considering we just washed the windows, and oftentimes we have to come back in and clean wolf hair off of the freshly washed windows, but it's fun. It's good stimulus for the wolves, and they seem to enjoy it. So they have been staying and holding while we washed the windows. A few weeks ago, Aiden decided to take off with the squeegee up the hill, and that caused a little trouble. So here again, just a full scent roll on some soap that was left over, probably spilled out of the bucket, and likes to fill himself full of that scent, and so that's a scent roll, and carries that wet soap around with him, makes him smell better than the beaver that he smelled like before. So that's a typical day for us. Again, this is early in the morning, probably 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and so we're seeing the typical pattern to be cooling off. So Grizzer, who we do not have a pond, typically he likes to just wade in things, but on these hot days, he's been getting a little agitated with the hot weather. So we do fill up a small tank for him, which is not, the same as a pond, but it certainly gives him something to do and something to cool off. And then while you're filming and your hands are full, he does have a tendency to take advantage of that. So not much damage he can do to the hose. If he chews it, we can just shorten it. But he got an opportunity to take that hose, and then he got pretty excited. And it's hard on the camera to really kind of keep track of Grizzer. He does what we call the Grizzer 500 and seems to move pretty quickly for a 7-year-old going on 8. So it's not our standard practice to let wolves steal garden hoses, but Grizzer does get a lot of leniency, I would say, or a lot of tolerance from us. It's good stimulus for him. Like I said, it gets him excited. I'm gonna try to keep up with him here in these next couple of sequences. And again, he continues to take the hose, and I have the camera. Basically, I'm just filming, so not much I can do about it. And once he has it, he's gonna run with it. It always amazes me though when I drag a hose, it gets caught up on everything, and when he drags a hose, you know, he can take it 15 feet into the enclosure with no trouble. So, like I said, the tank is not the ideal situation. It would be nicer to have a pond, but we chose to give him space to run, which is what he seems to prefer to do. And since our season of hot weather is very limited, meaning June, July, and August, and here into September, we didn't want to sacrifice space that a pond would take up when we were only going to use it for 3 months out of the year. But after Grizzer did a little bit of investigation here, gets excited, and does what we call the Grizzer 500, which is lookout wolf care staff. He just runs back and forth between the pack holding area there and back into his new habitat, and just kind of keeps running through, jumping over logs, over rocks, and does a spin around, might grab some brush, and he'll stop and rub up against wolf care. But when he's really, really having a good time, he just kind of keeps on going. And usually Oscar's in the lab, but the day I was filming this, Oscar was actually out in the yard. So Oscar's on the other side, probably doing play bows and getting them all excited as well. So good exercise for him, and certainly good stimulus for him. So as we said, we normally don't let wolves take our tools, but Grizzer is an exception. He can do what he wishes to do as long as it doesn't hurt him. So we let him just kind of play in the water. And actually on this day, we filled it, cleaned it, filled it, he emptied it, we cleaned it, filled it again. And the next clip that you're going to see was actually from the surveillance camera about an hour later. Oscar was in the lab, and he got up and he heard a little bit of excitement in the yard and was kind of let out a couple of barks. And so I looked at the surveillance cameras, and sure enough, Grizzer was emptying his bucket again. So after he does this racing around and I leave the pen and I'm in the lab with Oscar, you can see over on the left-hand side, he dumps the whole bucket and then just kind of drags it around a bit. So I think on this day I filled it 4 or 5 different times for him before he finally had enough fun with it. So, but as I was filling it and standing there for, again, the 4th time watching it fill, there is a possibility that I can make a small wading pool that can be chest height for him, for he to actually totally immerse himself right where he dumped that. There is a possibility, so I'll be looking at that for next summer. The other thing that, in retirement, they're a little bit more polite about their water. Shadow likes to lick the hose when we refill the water, and that's a typical thing for us to wash the waters on a weekly basis, if not more, depending upon how much activity there is and how hot it is. But I didn't get a footage of this, but I did spray the hose for Shadow Malik, and they just raced underneath the spray and back and forth, and they definitely enjoyed cooling off. Here you see Malik actually approaching Shadow in a very slow, deliberate move, and then kind of comes over to the camera. Both of them have pretty full bellies. They were fed some deer legs 2 days prior to this, so they both ate pretty well. And then again, Shadow in his lone howl. So I'll let you listen to that. And here Malik is not responding. It's a response for Shadow to some disturbance in the wolf yard or in back of the enclosure. Not really sure. But what's interesting is that the wolves seem to again know when he does these howls, he often does them alone, and there isn't a response. So they seem to know when to howl back and when not to. In this sequence, we actually were cleaning the enclosure and found some old beaver parts that they did not consume, and we actually spilled a few different things. I don't know what was in the bucket, but it was kind of wet. So wet and a little bit bloody, and they rolled on it, and didn't get too dirty. But what's interesting here is Malik's rolling on it. Well, when you're in a subordinate role, in a scent role, you're pretty vulnerable to a more dominant animal, and their shadow just comes over and postures over him. And you'll see Malik getting a little bit less enthusiastic about rolling on his back in front of his brother. So interesting how even just scent rolling, which is a normal communication, can stimulate a little bit more dominance. So that's it for this week, and webcams are fixed and back up. So thanks for watching.